In 1985, a new era of English sophisticated jazz pop was upon us. And one of the chief proponents of this style was Simply Red, and from their debut album picture book, the Late Night Candlelighter, Rainy Nighter, Sad Old Red.
I walk on stone, it leads me home. We don't have streets, just pure concrete.
Take just an old arrangement from like the 1940s and just give it a catchy bass line, and you've reinvented it. So far, all we have is that stand-up bass playing that, that very hummable ostinato, and brush the, the brushed cymbal, or brushed hi-hat, in Mick Hucknall's voice.
I'm not glad when I get home. I'm sad already. I don't wanna be alone no more.
That sumptuous piano adding accents, chordal, and Mick Hucknall showing already that just a few years after having been a punk, singer in the Frantic Elevators, that he has studied his soul music. He's learned how to emote. He's learned how to. He's restrained, and yet he can um, accent certain vowels and to emphasize certain words. Yeah, so far very very sparse yet effective arrangement, totally engaging, atmosphere, creating sort of that atmosphere that like that lounge after hours, after kind of as people are leaving, sort of a closing.
I go wider in the face, my feet begin to shake. I go upstairs to that heavenly place. I'm not glad when I get home. I'm sad already. I don't wanna be alone no more. Sad already, sad at home. Sad already, living on his own. Sad already, sad at home. Sad already, let me take you home.
It's made that on that course. It was almost like he was doing call and response with himself, like doing these two different voices, like the mezzo and that kind of more airy, tone. Both very soulful, like emotive, full of conveying a certain mood. And then after that chorus, we go into that brassy, section, like recalling, just like the best of the way they were doing it 15 years earlier, like on both sides of the Atlantic, with the brass, woodwind infused jazz rock pop extended lineup. We have got one, two, three, four, five. Yeah, this is a six-piece, and Mick Hucknall wrote this song and music and lyrics. I just gotta say I'm a little bit jealous at the moment that I no longer have my long hair, because I used to kind of gel it up to make it kind of wavy, and then I would flip it forward under my beret, and I could like do a very similar look to what he has. but I don't have much hair to work with anymore. Anyway, let's see what these lyrics are getting at. Let's see if the deeper meaning matches kind of the mood that's been conjured. I walk on stone, it leads me home. We don't have streets, just pure concrete. I'm not glad when I get home. I'm saddled red, I don't want to be alone. So far, I'm getting the feeling that our narrator doesn't like what's become of his neighborhood. I go whiter in the face, my feet begin to shake. I go upstairs to that heavenly place. I'm not glad when I get home. I'm saddled red, I don't want to be alone. So misgivings, the, I don't know, the anticipation about getting home versus the mundanity of home once you walk inside and close the door. Meaning that it beats being at work, but it's still kind of dull at times. Settled red, sat at home, settled red, living on his own, settled red, sat at home, settled red, let me take you home. Are we dealing with an older fellow here? It seems like the guy's kind of lonely, living by himself, and let's see. It's a cubic room, two holes peep through, shadows on the wall, of trees so tall. I think of her again, the joy she used to bring, lay there in bed, two words she said, oh, red. Oh, so I take it the narrator recently broke up, or the subject recently broke up with someone, and home feels like a prison. Uh, and metaphors about like shadows on the wall, meaning reflection, like silhouettes, or yeah, uh, beaming through the window as the sunlight casts their shadow onto his interior wall. Um, Saddled red, that's what I am all the time, every night, saddled red. And it's uh, understood. I guess the name Simply Red is a reference to himself. It's a reference to his hair color. I guess maybe Red was like his nickname in certain quarters. And I guess Saddled Red is just a reflection of him when he's gone through periods of romantic depressions. Yeah.
It's a cubic room, two holes peek through, shadows on the wall, yeah, of trees so tall. I think of her again, the joy she used to bring. Lay there in bed, yeah, two words she said, alright, she said, alright, all the time, alright, every night, alright, that old red, that's what I am, all the time, every night.
God, I swear. Here's this English band in 1985, conjuring sounds of like 40s, 50s lounge jazz, doing it better than probably just about any American act could have done. I mean, taking really American sounds from like the 40s and 50s and reinvigorating them, giving them new life in ways that I don't think. Uh, I'm hard pressed to think of any American act that could have done something like this, and yet made it relevant all over again. And of course, it's not a completely just the throwbacks of the time. It's also got modern elements. It's got the tonal clarity between the instruments. It's got that, the real, clean production, and therefore easier on the ears than a lot of those rough recordings from the 1940s. And, oh, those notes, everything counts right to the fade out. The brass and all the sax. And you know what? I also think, in addition to the 40s and 50s influences, this also really benefited from the innovations of more recent decades, particularly like in the vocals. You can tell that Mick Hucknall has absorbed a lot of 60s, 70s soul in his, phrasing, vocals, emotiveness, expression, dynamics, melodramatics at times. His ability to harmonize with himself, go into those high kind of airy tones, and then alternate that with like mezzo, and the brass and woodwinds very much studied, I would imagine, in the innovations that occurred at the jazz rock nexus, like say in the early to mid 70s. There are things I couldn't imagine without those developments in between. The roughly 40 years of history that Simply Red seemed to be drawing upon. As a matter of fact, in my blurb on 1985 and in the directory of albums from 1985, I referred to bands like Simply Red as rummaging through the 20th century lexicon. And what I meant by that is that they were borrowing bits of like 40s music, pre-rock 50s music, and even like and going back like even for, Tin Pan Alley, lounge jazz, jazz pop and such, and combining them in new and different ways for the 1980s. In a way, I see the sophisti-pop movement as like a recapitulation of revolver-esque foundationalism, yet adding elements that the Beatles themselves never touched upon. Elements that musical styles the Beatles never got around really to utilizing, like 50s vocal jazz, lounge pop, bossa nova. Yeah. Let's hear another track from the album, the closing title track, Picture Book. has a real like slow, open cadence lurch to it with a lot of sustain going on, but really a heaviness at the same time. I'm wondering if Mike Rutherford would have liked this track because those are he of course tended to write a lot in those like slow kind of lurching heavy open cadences. He's just one writer that comes to mind. Hear that kind of choral keyboard tone that's kind of like faintly filling out the sonic space. Yeah, those choral kind of sustains amid the more melodic synth line, that's kind of going up and down. What would you liken this more to? Kind of like post Joy Division influence, or kind of from that more darker kind of post-punk side of Genesis, like Moonshine, or like when I mentioned Mike Rutherford earlier, I was thinking of tracks like Moonshine and Man of Our Times, and even Squonk. All those were tracks that tended to emphasize the slow, lurching, rhythmically heavy, kind of slow, kind of large, thick, but I have to say, this track wouldn't even have half the power if it wasn't for his vocals. The way that the way that he just emotes and finds ways to like curl and twist certain syllables and catch up with the lyrics in a minute. I'm pretty sure some of the like soul music of the '60s, like that drew heavily from gospel, was an influence on Mick Hucknall. Like perhaps like Percy Sledge, Percy Sledge, When a Man Loves a Woman. Thinking of those long kind of open cadence arrangements with churchy organ and very minimal beat patterns, like almost like the beat kind of removed at times. And let's see here. Many types came to see the picture. Many types came to see the picture. Only he had the right to come. Only he is long gone. Will or win or wicked, it's written in it. Will or win or wicked, it's written in it. This track is the music is by Fritz McIntyre, and quite a very original arrangement he's come up with. And it seems kind of just like a unique arrangement for Blue-Eyed Soul anyway. Mixed with his Blue-Eyed Soul vocals, just this kind of minimalistic production arrangement and well, heavy minimalism or kind of like maximal minimalism because it's really large, kind of grandiose, and yet simple at the same time. And Mick Hucknall is responsible for the lyrics. Okay. Um, only okay. I back up a few lines. Only he had the right to come. Only he is long gone. Will or win or wicked, it's written in it. That's quite a tongue twister, like bit of like an alliterative, catchy phrase. Let's read on to see if I can crack the code on that. Quivering in mutual aggression, women sing remembering affection. Huh, very clever rhyming going on. Only he had the right to come, only he is long gone. Will or win or wicked, it's written in it. Here by the side of the book, we beseech thee, here by the side of Piero's spirit. I'm sensing we got some kind of literary reference going on, something he read. Good call and response between Hucknall and the rest of the band. And that solo, I gotta take some time out to just appreciate that kind of like minimalistic solo that we heard, just the dropouts of the rest of the band, and then the fills, the very selective notes that were played. And to flesh out different nuances of the theme. Yeah, we got some gated drums going on. Yeah, I wasn't so off in yeah, I knew there was a reason why I kept making Genesis references here. Yeah, we got that drumming where there's that echo. Once it hits, it kind of echoes, and the hit kind of has this sustain to it. Phil Collins would have loved this. As a matter of fact, I think Phil Collins would have liked this more than Mike Rutherford. Oh, the way that he was stretching those vowels out. Let's. really using his voice as an instrument. This is one of those tracks that the longer it plays, the more I get into it, and the more I appreciate it. And by the time it's done, I'm thinking, God, I need to hear it again. It's like um, soak up a bit more of that atmosphere, that captivating, like sustained, slow, heavy lurch of it all. Yeah, Phil Collins was doing arrangements like that, like during the early to mid '80s, like with those kind of like sparse, dark, heavy with gated drums. Yeah, I'm thinking like any of the like kind of darker, kind of post-punk influence songs, like on Abacab or Shapes, or on his first three solo albums. Um, yeah, in some ways, even like a track like Inside Out, despite having somewhat of a different mood, that came out the same year as Picture Book, and I was just so lucky enough to hear that the other day at Fred Meyer's on the DMX there. I guess the lyrics were making reference to oh yeah, Piero's spiritual. Uh, it's all literary reference. It's a literary reference. It's a character in literature that I'm just not all that familiar with, but it's intriguing anyway. It's a set of lyrics that even if you don't really know what he's singing at or getting at, it makes you want to do a little bit of digging and maybe find out, what did he read, what may have been in that writing that inspired him. That you know, I always find that oftentimes when I read lyrics, I end up learning new things. Simply Red, Picture Book, the title track from their 1985 debut album. And before that, Sad Old Red from the same album. Yeah, Simply Red, a band that would go on to many great things on both sides of the Atlantic and many other parts of the world, I'd imagine. Stylish frontman, classy arrangements, and a very eclectic and interwoven set of musical elements that this band of musicians mastered. For more Rubies and Sapphires from the catalog from the first few albums of Simply Red anyway, see the directory of albums by English S artists linked in the description below. Like and subscribe and follow me on social media and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about these two songs. The layers, the instrumentation, the nuances, the soloing, the rhythmic component, the harmonics of it all, the vocals, the lyrics, the meaning of certain lyrical passages, which notes and syllables you thought Mick nailed it best on, what were the most impassioned moments of this track, from, according to you anyway. Until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-traveled trimaximalist, signing off.